Done with that. It's always like this time, like late morning, midday orders, getting through the hump.
That's good. Yeah, people, it sounds like around right now have their eyes on this point about future planning and wonder what that is, how like
Yeah.
the time of the day, at least for people in our industry, correlate. And interestingly enough, I know from, working bi-coastally and talking to a couple of people that there's different like definitions of hustle for East Coast versus West Coast. East Coast hustle. East Coasters are there at opening time every day, generally.
Right.
There's exceptions, of course, but mentality of East Coast hustle. You're there on time every day. You're about to work your ass off up until your finishing time. Let's call it 5 o'clock.
Right.
You're going to do it. You're going to hustle the whole time. 5 o'clock comes around. Now it's family time. It's like a very regimented
Right.
schedule, like everybody knows exactly where you'll be and when and all of that fun stuff. And you're there for your work, and then you're there for after making money. You're there for your family and stuff, right? What's East Coast? East Coast hustler mentality. You're out of bed no later than 11 a.m.
You mean West Coast?
Or
West
excuse
Coast.
me, West
West
Coast.
Coast. Yeah.
West Coast hustler. Let's start that over. West Coast hustler mentality. You're out of bed no later than 11 a.m. You might not even see your family that day. But, and the way that kind of, everybody ends up like looking at it, you're going to work all night, if you need to. That's why you work. You're going to wake up
Right.
the
Right.
next day at 11
Yeah,
because
because you're
we're
going to bed
working till
late. Yeah.
3,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have seen that. I always try to figure that out because I come from, typical, what, a 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever, corporate type of job as
Yeah,
well when I,
same.
got into cannabis and segue. But, it's funny because now I look at the time and I'm like, I feel like these guys work 10 to 7, in cannabis. It's pretty like common hours. So like if I want to end at 5, I'm still trying to do dinner at 6 or 7 myself. And I'm getting calls and texts and emails and they're going till 7 or 8 on some of their days. And that forces me because they're my clients and I'm trying to service them. So I do find myself doing the same thing where it's like work until 7, do dinner, the family thing, and then I'm back, emails at 10, 11 o'clock before I go to bed, you know what I mean? And then I'm trying to get
100%.
sleep
Yeah.
in. So it is a different hustle. And I know West Coast is much more slow pace, definitely, than maybe the Midwest or East Coast, but it is something too that I've noticed just cannabis industry. I didn't know that maybe the East Coast might be a little more punctual, but I feel like cannabis industry is notorious for being late, slow, not as maybe active as some other sectors. I mean, I come from, corporate game where you're literally like minute by minute. If you're not being productive, you have a manager overlooking you and it's going to remind you like what's going on here. I don't know what you see in the cannabis game, but I feel like it's not as high paced in the grows, let alone the dispensaries and distros.
It's role based. You're there to do a certain job, and it's a question of is your job done? I feel like more frequently, because if something wasn't done, then the person who hired you to do that thing or to work in that role, that's when you get caught. It's not like, hey, you're not at your desk at a certain time, like
Right.
the contemporary idea of like slacking off at work,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is your role based. It's job position based. I mean, for us, essentially being, business owners and operators, we work all day to make things happen, regardless if there's fires, we keep going. And I think in a lot of grows and operations, I guess that's true too, is y'all give credit, whatever coast you are on is, the plants don't sleep. You have a lot of things going on constantly that keep you going 24/7 in some situations, and you can't stop until it is done. And I guess the role of maybe a 9 to 5, hourly employee might be a little bit different where they can come and go, but they're still part of the team. And sometimes they're asked overtime, you know what I mean, to stay. But yeah, man, recently, I guess in the market, that's an interesting topic too, is, not just on the West Coast, but everywhere, I think that labor is changing right now too. It's an odd topic to segue, but I know coming up, we're going to see a lot of things, not just tariffs, but, the inflation, the recession, people are getting laid off as companies in quarter 1 weren't as profitable as they might thought. And then looking for them to, afford the ability to continue operating. They're laying off people, they're cutting costs in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the whole, the nature of what it means to work or to be self employed, or even like the nature behind being self employed, I almost feel like Compared to, when I first rolled out into adulthood, there were very few friends that were self-employed.
Right.
Now it feels like almost everybody either has an Amazon store or some version of supplemental income or something like that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, especially if you're in a state like California, New York, places that are very expensive, to live, and you're looking to supplement your income. And, I know a lot of hourly people are still doing some sort of hustle on the side. They're moving packs, they're growing their own. A lot of guys in the grow, actually, I found, man, that they would come work in a commercial grow to learn to better their own skill set at home. And whether the hobbyist or whatever their skill was, they were taking the knowledge and growing at home themselves. And I think a lot of growers kind of came up that way too, was trial and error in their own grow, but learning under the mentorship of others. Myself, I had to learn trial and error all the time. And that goes back to me, like, oh, it's Sunday, I need a transplant, but the stores don't open until 11 o'clock. You know what I mean? But I'm there at 8. It's like things like that you are forced to wait around. But I think that the value add of an employee is what's important right now. Yeah, for sure. I'll take it down. But like things like if I'm, an hourly employee and I'm looking to better my opportunity, look at it from the company's perspective of what can you do for the company to either save them money or make them more money. Find out. That's good. Are you putting empty milk back in the fridge, bro? What is this?
I try not to, man. I'm only human.
No, this looks nice. So you fire that up.
Yeah, no, totally will. Good points. Just the nature of what it means to be employed changing. I'm looking, I don't know what to say. I guess we're all looking for what our position is going to look like as everything evolves. It's just so screwy that life feels like such a moving target.
Well, more so even recently, things are becoming, a little more challenging dynamically across, the United States economy, with recession and a lot of other, not just businesses, but, sectors in general are facing challenges from products coming in. We talked about this before. The price is now going up. And in general, prices are going up on stuff that maybe shouldn't even be affected just for the fear or I don't know, it seems to be like a herd kind of motion that people are just raising prices in general when it may or may not even be needed for their
Yeah,
product.
I feel like a lot of people feel that that was the case in COVID. During
Right.
COVID,
Yeah.
is this was a time to adjust to everything, so
Yep.
may as well use this for a whole new time of adjusted markups.
Hmm.
And let's hit the reset button on getting as much money as we possibly can. I feel like is what a lot of people considered, and in some ways, to their own credit, a lot of money was made.
Right.
But I think being a member of the working class and being all too aware of the imbalance between certain classes in the country, it just,
Right.
kind of screams in your face too at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, and as we kind of still go through all of this, I know we're talking a lot about more education and survival mode in terms of operations, and I think that today we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about Aspergillus, and that kind of ties into livelihood of growers. If you're in a commercial facility of any kind and you're in the supply chain, Aspergillus, which is a fungi mold, essentially is prevalent everywhere, and this is affecting crops across the United States at different levels of the supply chain. It could be in the beginning where you're seeing it come from the environment like air conditioning or the soil, and now it's potentially contaminating the plant. But we're going to talk a little bit more about what does contamination mean? Is it just a spot of Aspergillus, or is the entire crop taken over by it? And what point of the growth phases does this actually happen? Is it only in flower? Is it in post harvest where you're drying? Can it happen down the line during packaging and handling, or maybe while it's sitting at the shop? So I think that today will be a good opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into the Aspergillus challenge that we're seeing.
Yeah, like, okay. Well, I don't know if it's okay to take a dab like as we do our official like front cut, but I mean, I may as well try to pull everything together right here, man. You ready to go?
I am ready. Let's do this.
All right, here, hang tight. We're just gonna really clap it in. It's still a little too hot though. I think there might be too many things going on. We're
Oh,
gonna give it just a few more
all
moments.
good. Just
Almost ready.
I'm gonna pull up the notes.
Oh, yeah, we wrote notes, didn't we? Man, that would be helpful if I remember that at the time.
I mean, if we're gonna keep dabbing, I kind of need the notes.
I need the notes. Here you go, my brother.
All right. Thanks, sir. It's nice. It's potent shit.
Yeah, you chose a good one.
Oh, everything's. Oh man. All right.
You
Now
got
maybe we
this.
can get started here.
I think so.